So it's odd, right? Because I've talked about this. Wait, why did it switch to that? I talked about why, say, IGN or other games journalist outlets don't shit on popular games. And it's because, they still want to keep the attention and the information for the normies, people who just look at things, they go to the sites, they slightly browse them, may somewhat have their opinions swayed by them, and they don't want to lose any of that, right? Because we know this with, say, YouTubers, right? The minute they start talking shit about the product, like the company itself just sort of dropped them like a wet noodle. And once that happened, they stopped giving. They only gave it to a select few shills, and those shills were contractually obligated to say only positives about the product. Well, in this case, being the game. But we know movie outlets act this exact same way. We know TV show outlets, anything to do with the media has it has an incentive to just say the right thing, even if it goes counterintuitive to what people see or what the consumer sees. Like even if the very thing they say is literally you know contradicted by what people see, and I'm about to show you this in a little bit. It's like they will stick to this, they will cling to this, and they will absolutely just die on this hill. And it's almost like they know it's a lie. Like they know people are gonna look at this and be like, "Well, this looks dumb." Oh yeah, also in the beginning of this video, I don't know if I'm not gonna play the whole video because I don't know how it's gonna, because they might copyright strike this bullshit, which will be annoying, but it's what they'll do. It's like they say, "Oh, this is the first ever open world Star Wars game." So notice how they completely erase the past. So any Star Wars games that came out in the past, say like Knights of the Old Republic 2, that came out in the past, they've completely erased. That was open world. Like just completely stripped from the annals of history. And what was it? Star Wars Bounty Hunters was pseudo open world. I think Jedi Knights Jedi Academy was kind of. I mean, it was linear, but each planet was open, and you found out that it wasn't too big. But I'd say it's open world for the technology at the time. But here I'm gonna show you just a slight excerpt of this, and we'll
Demigod.
judge it
As
by
such,
ourselves.
the blaster battles felt like they had meaningful stakes, and the stealth gameplay had a bit of weight to it because I knew that I'd be up against it if
Okay, so it had meaningful stakes, right? But let's hyper analyze what we see here.
Demigod.
Because
As such,
what we see, okay, so she shoots this guy with the stun. This guy, for some reason, is having a conniption. Like you see the, the alert icon, just like, "Oh, hey, I spotted you. I'm gonna stand here for a whole 5 seconds," right? But then whoever's playing this moves out of cover, and he's having a conniption. This guy, what the hell is he doing? Like, what? I don't know. Someone shot out this way for some reason, right? And just looking at this, it's like, so he gets shot, and this guy someone shoots down there. It's like you're looking at this and you're like, meaningful stakes, huh? But then he hits the thing, and it's like you see this, and this just doesn't look like, it doesn't portray any emotion. Like it doesn't even look cool. Like this looks like, if you gave like a 3-year-old the remote and they're kind of trying to play, and it's surprising how they can just say one thing, but literally as they're playing the game, right? And it's also the fact that this is technically supposed to be a stealth game, if you want, but I'm assuming there's ways to go around it. But again, that's been done before. Like everything I've seen up until this point has been done. Like let's go back to the first ever.
Yeah, but
Indeed, it's true. Possible that Star Wars Outlaws is the first ever open world Star Wars game, but indeed it's true.
Yeah, again, he straight up lies to you. Or I guess, you know, if you only look from 2016 on, maybe you could have that opinion. But like me, who actually plays the other games, who played those games, this seems ridiculous. Like Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 were both open world. And I think even The Old Republic, which is the MMO, is also open world. So, the first ever open world Star Wars game.
Star Wars game, but indeed it's true. With
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, man. That's cap. You're capping on that. But I mean, and it's fascinating because, I got to that point in the video and just completely was awestruck. Like he talks about how the world seemed organic, which is bullcrap, I suppose. Like everything's probably scripted. He talked about how he gambled on a horse that he found information on who to choose, right? So it kind of holds your hand. You know, he talked about how he helped some random fucking dude who was down on his luck, and that dude promised to. Here's the thing with the horses, which whatever. I mean, again, things like this were done before. And look, I'm going off the preview, right? Again, this is him helping some dude with his enabling him, and then this is his attempt to do stealth, even more stealth, and the stealth seemed weird because it seemed like you hit a stormtrooper with full fucking armor on the head, and it knocks him down. And look, like I've had this against EFAT because they talk about the Mandalorian punching dudes with armor on their head and be like, oh, well that's not how people would act in real life. And I'm like, look, if the adrenaline's going right, and you don't always make the most rational decision. I mean, people aren't supercomputers. They don't always think logically about every situation. So sometimes you make split decisions. So again, when you're in a life or death situation, like it's even doubly so. Now I guess the Mandalorian is a warrior, and these are things he should know. But also, the point is to entertain. It's why you have the trope of the stormtroopers that can't hit anything, right? The point. If it was like reality, most firefights would be over in a matter of seconds. And though it's realistic, it's not entertaining. So, and again, I think the best marker for stealth combat would be Arkham City, Batman, because, he's still just a dude. Like, if you get shot when you're playing Batman, you'll still die, and that still makes the enemies a threat. So what you had to do was use your environment, use whatever options you have on the table to overcome the enemy, like to overcome whatever threat you're against. And I doubt they'll have anything that good in this game. I think it's just going to be like, oh, you press Y, bonk him on the head, and I guess he dies. You have your goofy little animal thing. It's why you can't make your own character. Like, I don't even care if your main character doesn't say a damn thing. Like, allow the person to make their own camera, and I know why they don't let you do this. Why you have to play just this, like, bland, boring, unattractive character. Because they don't trust you to play the game the way they want you to. So they railroad you. And that's why I have no faith in open world Ubisoft games. Because, yeah, they're open world in the sense that, yeah, I guess you're thrown in the sandbox and you can build whatever the hell you want. But it's also not in the sense that you're constantly railroaded. And because you're playing a character, they're just, I feel like there's options that you can't, like he talked about the faction system, which I think is also going to be watered down. Like, I don't believe it's going to be that interesting. He's like, oh well, if you help one faction, you're gonna and get more reputation than them. You'll lose reputation with another faction, and you can't go into their territory, so you have to sneak. And I'm like, well, if you want us to have stakes, right, you should make it a detriment for the factions to hate you. So if you don't care, and if you're like, oh, well, I don't care if, say, the Hutts hate me, you know, then they'll send, like, bounty hunters, they'll lock you out of shit. Like, you can have the player try to play both sides and make it extremely difficult but possible to play both the sides, or remain neutral in all of them, or at least have one like you and not the other. Like, say, the Pike Syndicate like you and have the Hutts hate you. I mean, there's ways that the faction system has been done before and better with other games. Now, I'm not asking them to copy and paste. Like, we know that's what Ubisoft does best. You know, it's like the game isn't even the product, it's the vehicle in which for them to impose on. Again, they want to impose everything: the message, how you're supposed to play, you know, the world. It's like, and I doubt there's any creativity behind this, but I guess if I was to say one good thing, I mean, the game looks like a Star Wars game. I mean, I feel like that's the only praise I can really give it. I mean, it looks Star Wars. And just by, if this was to come out in, like, I don't know, 2013, it'd probably be okay. But I feel like it would probably be better because you'd have the people in 2013 that made the Assassin's Creed and were actually talented at Ubisoft. Now we don't have those types of people. You know, we have, you know, people who are hired on based on nepotisms. You have consultants. You have them hiring psychologists so they can manipulate you into buying the game. You know, into purchasing microtransactions, purchasing other versions of the game. And we've already talked about the egregious pricing. I didn't watch this video all the way through. You know what? Fuck it. Let's watch it all the way through, shall we? I got to, like, here. They can do whatever
Nyx
the fuck
is the BD1 of this. Nyx. Yes, Nyx is the BD1 of this game, but compared to Cal Kestis's droid companion, Kay's organic pal can do a whole lot more.
I don't care. Again, that's just sort of things that are tacked on. It's not the point of the story.
He can distract an enemy by getting the bad guy's attention and adorably playing dead, or flat out attack them. He can hit buttons or switches too, or set off bombs, and retrieve items. This is useful when you're pinned.
Yeah, see, and I know why they're doing this, right? It's kind of like easy mode. Like in other games, you, the character, would have to find ways around things yourself. Like, take Elden Ring, or was it Dark Souls, for instance, right? There's other ways to go after bosses, like, and there would be, like, ways that would seem like cheating, but are 100% in the game. Like, it's not a cheat, it's a mechanic, and it's this way with, like, most point-and-click adventure games. Not that From Soft or Dark Souls is. It's like having other ways to go about things can make the overall experience better. That is if you, the person playing, figures that out yourself instead of having just, I don't know, some goofy little animal do it. And it makes you feel just better overall. Like, again, there really is no flex if you find a way to, I don't know, play, say, the faction system. You find out a way to play all the sides just by doing very lucrative or game breaking things that you wouldn't expect is the point of the mechanics, but is there. It's what I do for Warframe. Like, Warframe has like the factions and the syndicates, and if you help one, the others start to hate you, and there's like 6, and they're all effectively diametrically opposed to each other. But I got to the point where I can have like at least 4 out of the 6 like me through, again, lucrative game mechanic, like pretty much exploitation of game mechanics. But this is something the players themselves have to figure out themselves, not be like, oh hey, we have this effectively easy mode, like we have brain dead mode, which is that little goofy guy
down in a firefight and a more potent A300 blaster rifle is across the room. Nyx can go fetch it and bring it back and drop it at your feet without you leaving cover. I even like how Outlaws handles these larger weapons. They can't be reloaded, meaning that once you fire all the rounds, you just drop the empty gun and go back to your trusty blasters. This is likely a design decision to ensure that K never feels too overpowered, thus making sure the player is always on their toes in combat.
Out here.
I mean, but there are guns in Star Wars that 100% allow you to reload. Like, not all of them is up. Out of energy, gotta drop it.
Here you live and die by your reputation.
And I'm fine with the fact that you're not playing a Jedi. I mean, look, that brings just objectively more risk to the world. You know, like, I mean, there's still risks. Like, Giant Knights of the Old Republic, you're a Jedi, yeah, but you're fighting other Jedi, like Sith Jedi, and hell, Mandalorian, so a sect of people that could absolutely handle Jedi. And again, and there was risk, but that's the point. You know, I don't tend to really care for the Jedi. I think they're effectively easy mode, but if it makes the game, if it's the point of the game, and if there are mechanics around that idea that makes it better, I don't give a shit. Like, one of the best Star Wars games I played, Knights of the Old Republic was good, but the game that had probably some of the best lightsaber battling out of all Star Wars games was Jedi Knights Jedi Academy. I mean, I like the Force Unleashed combo-based lightsaber, but you're just kind of jumping between 2 buttons. With Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, it was your thumbstick, which dictated how you swung. And it's not only the where you press your thumbstick, but it's the direction you're moving, you know, how far you hit the thumbstick, rather you're jumping up or jumping down, or if you're pressing the thumbstick and A to do like some sort of jump attack. Like, these are things that made that lightsaber battling just some of the best out of any Star Wars games. I don't think any game has even come close to mimicking it. But, again, here, I guess it's just going to be some vapid shooter. Like, I doubt there's going to be any other weapons other than the blaster, which is a shame. Because, well, there are other weapons, and I doubt there's going to be any other enemies except NPC guy with a blaster 1, NPC guy with a blaster 2, and so on and so forth.
Finally, you can't have an open-world Star Wars game without ways to get around that expanse, and in Outlaws, Kay has a speeder bike that, as you'd guess, can also be upgraded. You can win credits doing races.
And this also the thing, right? Upgrades, like, alright, with this upgrade, you get 5% faster. You know, you can strafe more efficiently. Same thing with her blaster. It's like, does 5% more headshot damage. I mean, you know, the basic Ubisoft works that is you can come to expect.
Or just
I don't know why you can't just let the character have other guns. I mean, that's the thing with Jedi Knight Jedi Academy is, yeah, you had your lightsaber, but you could also use the guns, and you had like a decent amount of force powers that helps you. Like in Star Wars, like in Jedi Academy, like if someone's shooting a rocket at you, you can force push that shit right back at them. Or if someone's throwing a grenade, you can force push that shit right back at them. You can force pull the gun out of troopers' hands. Look, being the Jedi actually made that game better. Because, yeah, you could never even use the lightsaber, but you still could use the Force, right? And, again, there was no upgrades except to the Force powers, and that's when you finish the level. And, I don't know, I feel like this is going to have, you know, you can race people, you go to a node, and it's a racing node. I feel like this is the only planet you're going to be on, which, again, I'm fine with having planets that aren't too big, but you go to different planets with different biomes and different cultures, like go to Kashyyyk, or you can go to Tatooine, or, you know, Bespin. You know, just different biomes, you meet different characters, have different quests. You know, variety is what you need in a Star Wars anything. Rather it be movie, TV show, cartoon, game. Variety, it is sci-fi. Variety is the point. Right? But I doubt they're going to do any of that.
Along the way to your destination at some interesting looking pit stop. The bike controls well.
What's that fucking Star Wars game for the Nintendo? Was it for Nintendo that I played? But it wasn't Star Wars Bounty Hunters or Star Wars something. It was for the X. I played so many of the older games, I can't even remember. I can remember the way they look, but I can never remember the names.
Almost feels like driving a boat in Wave Race 64 in that it's pretty fast and arcade.
Why not have the players have different bikes? Like, what? They're like, oh, you can upgrade the one you have, but well, what if I want different, like to ride something different? Is that not in the code? Am I not allowed? Am I only supposed to play the way you want me to? Because you're like my mommy. Like, you're scared to death. I'm gonna find a way of playing that is just not allowed, and you just don't want that. You know, what if I want a different goofy ass creature? Look, they can go to the moon with customizations and abilities and the way you go about situations, but they're doing this just tiny fringe facile way of doing it that games in the past have completely went around, and they went around this just without even trying. You know, nowadays a game has to try to be good, but back then, I mean, yeah, you had shitty games, you had shitty Star Wars games that I still played because Star Wars was still good, you know, as an IP. You know, you had shitty movies, you had shitty, but risks were taken, which would, in my opinion, makes them, even if they're bad, they have their identity. Games and movies and TV shows nowadays just don't have any identity. Like, they try to push an ideology, but they don't try to actually make you like sell an experience. Like they want to sell a product, but they don't try to sell an experience. And they have a chance to sell an experience with Star Wars Outlaws, but I guess they're just choosing not to, which is just a very odd decision. Like they're choosing, to do just yet another blatant, boring open world Star Wars game, and it's fucking Star Wars. You literally have just an ocean of content, but they're sticking with the vapid open world shooter that maybe has stealth.
And maneuverable, but hardly handles like it's on rails.
I probably shouldn't watch this all the way through because they're gonna probably strike this shit. But again, it's a shame.
Blazer, and yes, it's upgradable. I got.
Oh yeah. Boring. This
to
is
do a
probably
bit
some
of
the
outer
most
space
boring
ship-to-ship combat,
ship
and
combat.
I had it.
But the thing you have is upgradable. Well, what if I want another ship? I mean, you're playing an outlaw, right? You can have people steal ships. You can sell them to get better ships, right? I'm thinking of a completely different game this can be, other than what they're promoting to you, right? Like you should be able to change the weapons and everything. Like literally do what Starfield did with its ships. Minus, you don't need the modularity because I know that's a lot to place in. So, and I know Ubisoft, anything that comes to actually putting in effort, they're afraid to do. But just stick with me, Not well, you can make them semi-modular, but just allow people to choose. And again, this is the problem with playing a character, right? You don't have as much freedom as you think you do. That's probably why they're making it open world, because they know this. But, the fact of the matter is people are fine with being railroaded in linear games if those games are good. I think the open world is just effectively window dressing. It's supposed to portray something that's a lot greater than what it actually is and cover up how blatantly boring and unfascinating the game is.
First impression.
Oh, that's it. We've lost.
Outlaws went gold well before the preview event, meaning that if I wasn't playing the certification build, it was something mighty close. And while yes, there will inevitably be a day one patch, as most games have nowadays, it was.
And he's just brushing that off. Why is there a day one patch? Like, why can't you have a game that comes out at least 80-90% serviceable? Right? You're demanding $70 for a product that's not even really worth $70 yet. And you're just adding in content later. Like, what the fuck, man? Am I ever gonna play this game? Fuck no. Like, I can go my entire life without consuming another Ubisoft product. And I want to have faith in Beyond Good and Evil 2, but it was in development hell for reasons that I don't particularly know, but we can speculate, right? I made so many videos on why, well, a couple videos that went over so many points on why games are, late, they come out broken, they come out buggy, they come out 6, 7, 8 years later. And, I guess the coding reason is a very good one, but it's the fact that there are so many checks and balances you need to go through to even green light a project. Like, it's not the way it used to be where you just had some dudes in their mom's basement and they're like, you know what, we have some level of coding knowledge, let's try to put it to use putting a product on the market. It's not like that anymore. Now, if you're not connected, if you don't have the right connections, right, you'll just you'll have to butt heads with legislation, then butt heads with whole fucking government, then butt heads with your publisher, then butt heads with the platform you're wanting to sell the game on. There's just so many things, and it's why even indie games are kind of becoming bland and boring. I mean, they definitely shouldn't be, but it is like, okay, there are a couple indie games that are good, but they don't they don't portray what I like to see. Like, I like a game that portrays emotion, and it has to be willing to offend to do that. Like, it has to be able to offend your senses in order to portray the emotion. If you don't allow that to happen, well then, I mean, how much of what is showing is what people want versus how much of it is being censored, or they're being uh, effectively having their artistic value constrained by red tape. And this game's obviously not going to, like portray any emotion to you. I mean, it's a vapid, mass-produced Ubisoft product instead of an experience. And that's my whole take on this. I think this game's just gonna, like, I kind of want this game to fail, and that's bad to say, but Ubisoft believes that they know better than what came before, and sometimes people with that mindset that, again, the consumer doesn't like Ubisoft like at all. I mean, they used to be liked, like people used to buy Ubisoft products. Like they were nowhere on the like where Blizzard was. But I mean, they made some Prince of Persia, Assassin's Creed, Beyond Good and Evil. Like, they had some good titles under their belt. I liked For Honor, that idiotic game, and I regret ever liking that game. But you know what I mean. And it was fun while you played with friends, but then when the meta came out, it was like, well, I don't care anymore. But yeah, I mean, that's all I really gotta say about this. Peace.